Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, The Sweet Truth, Added Sugar and Your Health. I'm Kirby Bransifort. I'm a registered dietitian and Wegmans Nutritionist, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Please note that the information provided during today's webinar is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended as a substitute or replacement for medical advice, medical nutrition therapy, or individualized medical nutrition counseling. I will be rejoining you at the end to moderate our Q&A, and am pleased to introduce you to our presenter, Marda Heuman, registered dietitian and Pennsylvania, Delaware Division Nutritionist. Take it away, Marda.
Thank you so much, Kirby. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you all on the call here taking time out of your day to join us. We're going to talk about the sweet truth, added sugar, and your health. So let's get started right off the bat with what is sugar. Sugar comes from plants, sugar beets and sugar cane to be specific, and it's a type of carbohydrate, just like starches and fiber are kinds of carbohydrates. And they're really important because they're the main source of energy for our bodies. We need them for physical activity and for basically everything that we do. And our brain really prefers to have carbohydrates as its energy source. And you want to stick to foods that are like these you see here, whole foods like fruits and vegetables, dairy products, grains, all contain good carbohydrates. So what's the difference between natural sugar and added sugars? So natural sugars are those that are found naturally, obviously, and they just are grown into the foods or with animals. They come in the milk, just like you see here, fruits and vegetables, dairy products, that sort of thing. Added sugars, on the other hand, are those that are added during processing, or maybe you add them to your coffee or tea, that sort of thing. Sugar-sweetened beverages, sugar-sweetened cereals, cakes, cookies, candies, that sort of thing, and even in things like condiments, salad dressings, and that sort of thing. Both of these, both added sugars and natural sugars, they both are digested into blood glucose into our guts. They both do that. That's just the way it is. They do. The difference nutritionally is that foods with natural sugars, they come bundled in this nutrient package with vitamins and minerals and plant compounds, and with fruits and vegetables, even fiber. We don't need to worry about the sugars we get from these natural products because they have these nutrients in them. Those are nutritious foods. Added sugars, on the other hand, those do not have that bundle of nutrients. And while some healthful foods like sugar-sweetened yogurt and whole grain breads have a little bit of sugar in them, they do have a little bit of added sugar, but usually in much lower amounts than these sugar-sweetened beverages and cakes and that sort of thing. So they're giving us energy, but very little to no nutrition. So this is why it's important to differentiate between natural and added sugars. So why should you be concerned about added sugars? Well, added sugars fill you up on empty calories. That's the biggest thing. They crowd out nutritious foods. Think about starting your meal with a piece of cake. You're going to get full from the cake, or at least a little bit full from the cake, and then you're not going to want to eat as many of the nutritious foods with all of the vitamins and minerals and things in them. So eating those extra added sugars, those can increase your risk of heart disease, obesity, cognitive problems, and diabetes. Plus cancer. So we really have a reason to pay attention to how much we're eating of these added sugars, and we want to limit them. So where do we get most of the added sugars in our diets in the US? We get them mostly from this big blue section here you see on the pie chart. That's beverages, sugar-sweetened beverages, sodas, sugar-sweetened fruit drinks, coffee and teas, sports drinks, those sort of things. 47% comes from that category. And then a little bit less than that, and 31% is the purple category. That's the sweet foods, as you can imagine. And then these littler colors here, those are from things like mixed dishes, condiments, sugar-sweetened cereals, sauces, that sort of thing. So when you're thinking about cutting back, if that's your goal to cut back on added sugars, you might want to think about which of these categories am I getting most of my added sugars from, and which of these am I willing to cut down on? That's a good place to start. So most people know how to identify foods and beverages as having added sugars, but what about savory foods or less obvious foods that we don't quite know that they have sugar in them? Things like dressings and marinades, sauces, bread, and condiments. For example, this teriyaki marinade, half of this teriyaki marinade is added sugar. So 50% of this is added sugar. The good news is there are plenty of marinades that don't have very much or don't have any added sugars in them. And this steakhouse peppercorn is one of them. It only has 1 gram in a serving. Another example is this stir fry sauce that's Asian inspired. A third of it is added sugar. We do have an alternative though. This pot Thai peanut sauce only has 1 gram in a serving. So this is a reason to flip the package over, the bottle, the can, whatever, and look at the nutrition facts panel. And I'm going to show you how to look at that in a couple slides from now. But there's always or almost always choices that don't have added sugars or have very little. Now, when we're talking about bread and specifically whole grain bread, whole grain tastes a little bit bitter. So when companies are turning this into bread products, they add a little bit of sugar to counteract that bitter taste. So there's usually a little bit, usually not very much, but a little bit of added sugar in whole grain bread. You could go for a refined bread like this sourdough here. It only has 1 gram in a serving compared to 3 grams for multigrain, which isn't very much either. But if that's really a place, if you're eating a lot of bread and this is a place where you can cut back, you could do that. The trade-off is that the refined flour breads don't have the same amount of protein or fiber in them that the hearty grain has in it. So that's something to think about. And then finally, when we're talking about condiments, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that ketchup has sugar in it. And actually a third of a serving is sugar. So there is quite a bit of it in there. Good news is we have an alternative. This is the 50% less sodium and less sugar alternative here. And it only has 1 gram of sugar in this ketchup. So again, we're not saying that you shouldn't eat these foods. Absolutely. If you enjoy any of these foods that have the added sugars in them, you should enjoy them. Just you might not be aware that those sugars are in there. And that's maybe a category where you could cut back. And it's really important to factor in when you're thinking about your goals. You might be getting more added sugars than you think. So how much added sugar is okay? Well, the average American today is eating about 18 teaspoons or 17 grams of sugar every day. Is that too much? Is that too little? Well, according to the CDC, we really should be getting no more than 10% of our calories from added sugars. And in the US, we talk about the basic 2,000 calorie diet. So 10% of that is 200. So that it works out to be 12 teaspoons per day or 50 grams of added sugar is the recommendations from the CDC. They even go further to say children 2 years and younger should not eat foods and beverages with added sugars at all. Now, the American Heart Association, you may have heard this recommendation, they're even more strict in their limitations here. They say no more than 9 teaspoons a day for men and 6 teaspoons a day for women. It's really hard to go from 18 teaspoons to 12, but even harder to go from 18 to 6 or 9. So starting at 12 might be a good goal. So here we are at the nutrition facts panel. Remember in the first slide, we said that sugar is a type of carbohydrate. So that would make sense that the added sugar line here is in the carbohydrate section, and that's the green section that I've blown up so you can just see it better. About 4 years ago, the government started requiring the amount of added sugars be put on the label, which was good news for us dietitians. We jumped up and down for joy because now we can tell exactly how much added sugar is in a product. The issue is that they tell us in grams, and who knows what a gram is? Most people don't know. So let's translate that into teaspoons because we said 12 teaspoons a day for the CDC or 6 or 9 for the American Heart Association. It's easy to convert it. You just need to do a little math. So 1 teaspoon of sugar equals 4 grams of sugar. So what we need to do is take the number of added sugar grams divided by the 4, and then we're going to get the number of teaspoons. And that works out to 10 grams. That's how much is in here. Divided by 4 is going to give us 2.5 teaspoons. So anytime you see this number here, just divide by 4, and that's going to give you the number of teaspoons. So 2.5 teaspoons, is that too much? Is that too little? Well, that all depends on where you are in your day and what your goals are. If you're trying to meet the 12 teaspoons a day, then 2.5 teaspoons isn't that much relative to the 12. And if you're not going to go to a birthday party or some kind of event where there's going to be lots of sweet things, this would be perfectly fine. If you've already gone to a party and you've already eaten a lot of sweet things, maybe this won't fit into your goals. But again, it's highly personal. It's up to you and your goals and where you are. So another way to tell, if you don't have the package in front of you, if you're not in the store looking, if you're buying your groceries online, or for whatever reason you want to look and see how much sugar is in a product, you can go on our website or our app, find the product you want. In this case, I chose Wegmans No Sugar Added Applesauce Bowls, a 6-pack. You can scroll down. It's going to help show you this icon with nutrition information. You click on that and it'll give you the nutrition facts with, of course, the added sugar lines on there. Same on the app and the web. You can find it both ways. Now, how do you know what ingredients are contributing to the added sugar? This is a question we got in the registration is, how do you know if something in the ingredient deck is sugar? Well, the obvious ones say sugar: brown sugar, beet sugar, cane sugar, corn syrup, molasses. I think we all know those are sugars. But what about the less obvious ones? Evaporated cane juice, brown rice syrup. You'll see those in a lot of organic in the natural foods kind of category. Fruit juice concentrates, those are also considered added sugars. Now, I want to make special attention here to the 4 at the bottom: honey, maple syrup, agave, and raw, also called turbinado sugar, because they are often perceived as natural choices because they're not as highly processed and purified as table sugar. Scientific, and then they're perceived as being more nutritious, but science isn't really supporting that. It's true that some of these sweeteners have a little bit of minerals in them, like maple syrup has a little bit of iron, but the quantity relative to the amount you would actually consume is quite small. So there's really little nutritional advantage of one over the other, and these are considered added sugars. Now let's have a little fun. At least I think this is the fun part of the program here. This is a 20-ounce Coke. And remember we said at the beginning that on that pie chart that we're getting most of our added sugars from beverages. And this is a great example or an illustration to show you how that's happening. So I don't know if anybody knows how much sugar is in a Coke, and how many of you might be surprised to learn that there's 16¼ teaspoons or 65 grams of added sugar in this 20-ounce bottle of Coke. So you've just blown past the 12, the 6, and the 9 all in one bottle of Coke. Okay, so that's how you can see that it's so easy to get too much sugar. Here's another example. This is a Starbucks Frappuccino coffee drink. This one is a little bit smaller bottle, but it only has 8 teaspoons, but still 8 teaspoons. You're getting pretty close to the 9 and, close to the 12. You've gone over it if you're going for the 6. So again, great illustration of how we're getting so much from our beverages. Now, how about hidden sugars like in salad dressings? I'm not sure that we would expect there to be sugar in salad dressings because they don't taste sweet. At least most of them don't taste sweet. They're savory. They go on vegetables. Why would we want them to be sweet? But I wanted to show you that there are some in there. And raspberry vinaigrette, you might kind of guess that there's a little bit of sugar in there because it does taste sweet. But there's almost 2 tablespoons or 7 grams of added sugar in the 2 tablespoon serving. So there is quite a bit of sugar in there. Now, let's give some more examples. This is lemon herb. This is my favorite salad dressing here. I use it every day when I make a salad. It doesn't taste sweet at all. I wouldn't expect there to be any sugar in it. And it has less than 1 teaspoon, so it does not have very much. So we're getting better here. So what about creamy garlic Caesar? That one's really savory. It doesn't even have a hint of sweetness. And it actually has 0 grams of added sugar. So I put that one in there kind of to stump you, but also to show you that there are salad dressings, and plenty of them, that have 0 or very little added sugar. So this might be an option for you. And this depends on how much you like salad dressing. If you're a drowner, if you like salad soup, you might want to stick to the ones that have less sugar in them. If you're someone like me that I don't really like salad dressing that much, I'm just going to put maybe a teaspoon on a big salad. I like to have a little bit of flavor, but I like the flavor of vegetables. I could probably get away with eating this most days because I'm going to get very little added sugar on that one. So again, it's very personal, very much you have to line it up with your goals. So one more illustration here, and I want you to show you how easy it is to get close to your added sugar intake at breakfast. So this is instant oatmeal. Oatmeal is a great stepping stone if you want to, thinking I want to have a more nutritious breakfast. Oatmeal is fine. It's whole grains. It's got fiber. It's got some protein in it. But these packets, unfortunately, have quite a bit of added sugar in them. So this one particular maple and brown sugar has 4 teaspoons or 16 grams of added sugar in it. So you can see how easy it is to get your sugar in the morning. Now, the alternatives, we have a great alternative, and it's just oats. This is also the same size package, but it is exactly like it says. It is nothing. There is nothing but oats in the pack. It's just like the oatmeal you get in the cylinders, just nicely, conveniently portioned out for you. And it has 0 grams of added sugar. And then you can make it as sweet or, jazz it up as much as you want. You could put dried, canned, frozen, fresh fruit in there. You could put some nut butter in there, however you want to do to make this, a little bit sweeter. You could even put a little bit of maple syrup or honey, or even when I make oatmeal, I like to put a little bit of brown sugar in it. But there's no way I'm putting 4 teaspoons in. That would be way too sweet. So again, depending on where your goals are and how willing you are to watch how much sugar you eat in the morning, this might be a better option for you. So how do we cut back on added sugars? What are some tips? The idea is not to eliminate them, but instead we really want to start to become aware of the foods and beverages that may contain them, like I've gone over here on these slides, and then you can make small changes to reduce the added sugars intake. So one of the first things you want to do is check the nutrition facts panel, compare products. You can compare within brands. You compare the different brands to see which ones have the sugars that meet your goals. You can rethink your drink. This is a good one. Try and cut back on added sugars in your beverage, because remember, that's where we're getting most of our sugar in the US. For instance, you could gradually reduce the amount of sugar you're putting in your coffee and tea. You could try some unsweetened carbonated beverages. You could do some diet beverages. We have a ton of flavors of Wegmans sparkling water and also Wonder Water, which also has a lot of flavors, but it's not carbonated. There's got to be a flavor that you like. My personal favorite is the watermelon. I also really like the ginger. It tastes just like the ginger ale. You can reduce sugar in recipes. You can reduce sugar in your recipes by 1/4. So for example, if you're making a cake and it calls for a cup of sugar, you could cut it down to 3/4 of a cup. And that's not going to change the texture or the crumb of the cake, nor is it going to change the flavor. That's another way you could adjust your recipes. And you can try and sub in whole foods like fruits instead of adding sugars. So some examples here. This is a glass of water that's got a bunch of fruit stewing in it, or seeping out their juices. This is amazing. The longer you let the fruit sit in the water, the more fruity it's going to taste. Great refreshing, especially in summer, and especially right now because it's like 3,000 degrees outside. This is yogurt that's unsweetened. You can put whichever kind of fruit you like on it. Again, fresh, frozen, canned, dried, whichever ones you prefer. Make it sweeten it that way. Same with pancakes, fresh fruit, canned fruit, frozen fruit. Applesauce unsweetened is a nice, refreshing treat. And by the way, if you haven't tried applesauce on pancakes, you don't know what you're missing. It's really delicious. I would try that. And also, when my kids were little, we did this a lot. I put unsweetened applesauce in unsweetened yogurt, and that was a nice treat for them. Another thing you can do in the morning for your toast with peanut butter is, instead of putting jelly on it, you could put bananas, you could put strawberries, you could mash up some raspberries to have on there, so you can sweeten it without added sugar. And then finally, here's that oatmeal example again with some fresh fruit in it. I like to actually put frozen berries in my oatmeal. Serves 2 purposes. One, I always have frozen fruit in my freezer. I don't have to worry about it going bad or how long it's been in there. And it cools down the oatmeal. So that's a nice trick. And then I do want to, if you don't know about cinnamon is tricky because it tricks your taste buds into sensing sweet. Even though cinnamon itself is not sweet, but your taste buds think that it is. So you could put cinnamon in any of these things, and it's going to help you kick up that sweet sensation in your mouth a little bit. I'd give that a try. And then I want to finally, for the record here on this slide, is tell you that even dietitians eat desserts. I eat them pretty often. We don't need to worry about having an occasional sweet treat, piece of cake, piece of pie, cookie, whichever you prefer. My preferred this time of year is ice cream. It's okay. We can eat sweet treats sometimes. Now, what are non-nutritive and artificial sweeteners? And this is another way you can cut back on the added sugars, by going this route. Are they safe? Well, let's get into it. So artificial or non-nutritive sweeteners are either chemical or plant-based. And here's the 2 examples here. Sucralose is also Splenda, that's the trade name, is made in the lab. This is the chemical formula. Stevia and also monk fruit come from plants. So there's a sweet substance in the leaf that they extract, and they make that into the sweetener. So two options, chemical and natural. Now, as far as safety goes, there have been so many studies. There's very few other food ingredients that have been studied more than artificial or non-nutritive sweeteners. And most of them have found no link between artificial sweeteners and cancer or other serious health problems. In fact, the National Cancer Institute and other health agencies have confirmed that there is really no reliable scientific evidence that the approved artificial sweeteners cause cancer or any such issues in humans. There have been a couple recent studies suggesting there's a possible connection between sweeteners and heart disease, but more research is needed to clarify this. And the bottom line is really that currently all approved artificial sweeteners in the US are considered safe for moderate consumption by the FDA. So let's get into which one of these are artificial and which ones are natural. So the artificial ones, saccharin, aspartame, sucralose, we just mentioned, and A-sulfate potassium, sometimes shortened to ACE-K. Those are the artificial ones. The natural ones are stevia. Sometimes you'll see them on the ingredient deck as rhabdoioside or Reb A, Reb D, and monk fruit, both derived from a plant. Okay, so in summary here, on the last slide, regardless of whether it's sugar or sweeteners, moderation is key. Too much of either may harm your health. You really want to be mindful of portion sizes. You also want to try and train your taste buds to something that's less intensely sweet. Getting yourself used to what food should actually taste like instead of putting a lot of sugar on it can help you recognize that those foods are good without the sweetness. And then there's personal choice. Everyone's preferences and health goals can really vary widely. So reducing added sugar intake, that may help lower your risk of those things we mentioned: heart disease, cognitive problems, cancers, and other health issues. And this path is really flexible. You can choose to drink less sugary drinks. You can cut back on sweets. You can cut back on the sugar in your recipes. You can even explore artificial sweeteners and natural sweeteners if you want to. All of these approaches are going to contribute to a healthier you. And then finally here, I want to say the Wegmans Nutrition team, all of us, we really want to empower you to feel your best. Our goal anytime we do these webinars is we're trying to help you live a healthier, better life. So please check out our website, wegmans.com/feelyourbest. Kirby mentioned that in the beginning. We have information on so many topics, including diabetes, brain health, heart health, hydration, that sort of thing. And hot off the presses, just this week, we added an reducing added sugars page. You can find that on this landing page under whole body health. So that's got some more information, emphasizes some of the things I talked about today. And then as Kirby said, you can find our past webinars on the website as well. And Kirby's going to put all of the links to those in the chat if he hasn't done that already. Okay, so I'll stop sharing and we can come back on and answer some questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Marda. That was fantastic. And I just love your message that it's not an all or nothing situation for folks, because I think so often that happens with some of these topics. So thank you so much. And before we move into the Q&A, we do have some time. I did want to mention that we have a survey that we'd absolutely love you all to fill out. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. So for those watching live, the link is found in the chat. And if you do happen to be watching this on demand, you can find the link to that survey in the description for the video. So thank you in advance for helping us always continue to improve. So Marda, we had some great questions. The first one I want to ask, we had a bunch in the pre-registration and some while you were talking about diabetes, added sugars and diabetes. So if you could, I'm going to go ahead because I know that we'll actually suggest that folks check out, we have a whole webinar on diabetes. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that in the chat for the live attendees here, but that can also be found on wegmans.com/feelyourbest towards the top, a link to all of our videos found there. But if you could just simply address the general question of, do added sugars affect diabetes? I think that would be great for everybody.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know it gets so confusing. There's so many things to pay attention to when you have diabetes, but they absolutely do affect your blood sugar, just like natural sugars are going to affect your blood sugars because they're a type of carbohydrates. So when a person has diabetes, it's the amount of total carbohydrates you want to watch. So if the doctor has told your healthcare provider said you should have, taken a wild number here, 250 grams of carbohydrates in a day, you want to look at that total carbohydrate number on the nutrition facts panel. So total carbohydrates are the most important. You want to keep in mind, though, that added sugars, they don't typically come with many nutrients. So since you really need to watch your carbohydrates, you want to prioritize them, getting your carbohydrates from whole foods like fruits and vegetables, and grains, nuts and seeds, that sort of thing.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. And another question we got was regarding the pie chart that you showed, where the sources of added sugars are in the American diet. Could you clarify with the coffee and tea, because that was one of the beverages that was broken out? Is that because we're adding sugar and sweeteners to coffee and tea that they're a major source?
Yes, coffee by itself, black coffee, black tea, they don't have added sugars. It's what you add, or if you go to a coffee shop, they're adding syrups and the other things. That's where the added sugars come. That's a great question. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. That's great. Another question that we got, I think we're still doing okay in time here. What are sugar alcohols, and are they better than other sweeteners?
That's a great question. So sugar alcohols are funny because their name's misleading. They're not sugar and they're not alcohol. They got their name because they sort of chemically resemble sugar or alcohol, but they're not sugar or alcohol. When you're looking at the ingredient list on the an ingredient deck on a product, because sugar alcohols aren't going to be named on the nutrition facts panel, you look for words that end in OL: xylitol, sorbitol, erythritol, mannitol. Those are the main ones. Look for those ingredients. Then you're going to know there's a sugar alcohol. The thing about these ones is sugar alcohols is they aren't quite as sweet as sugar, and they do have fewer calories. They're also digested slower, so they don't, make your blood sugar go up so quickly. This makes them really good for use of people that have diabetes. In fact, a lot of the diabetic-friendly foods like sugar-free candy, sugar-free pies and cookies and that sort of thing have sugar alcohol in them because they don't spike the blood sugar. Unfortunately, I have to note to everyone that they can cause digestive distress because we don't digest them fully. So the bacteria go to town in our digestive system and can cause a lot of gas and bloating and that sort of thing. They can even have a laxative effect. So when you're eating foods that have those alcohols in them, sugar alcohols, you should really be mindful of starting slowly. Don't go and eat a whole bag. I actually had a client once that did that. It didn't end very well. So yeah, go slow. Also, I want to point out that there have been a couple of recent studies you might have heard about sugar alcohols and cardiovascular disease. Both of those studies ended with the researchers saying we need more studies. So I'm not hanging my hat on either of those studies right now. I'm going to wait until we have more research to verify.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. And in our last minute here, I think we have time for one more. Somebody asked, does added sugar have any interference, or does it interfere with sleep?
That's a good one. As far as I know, there isn't any, I've never seen any research specifically on added sugars and sleep, but I do know that eating too close to bed, there is a lot of evidence that can disrupt your sleep. And that's a couple reasons. First off, if you eat, or when you eat, a lot of acid goes into your stomach to help digest the food, to break it down. And if you go and lay down right after that, that acid can creep up into your esophagus and cause heartburn and just discomfort in general, and cause you to have a hard time falling asleep. The other thing that happens when you have all of that food in your belly when you go to bed is your body wants to be rested. It doesn't want to be working hard digesting all of that food. So, and there are some things that are supposed to happen in your digestive system as you sleep that can't happen because it's so busy digesting food. So the American Heart Association the Mayo Clinic really recommends that not eating for 3 hours before you go to bed.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Marda. And we are out of time. And I thank everybody for attending and joining us today. Marda, thank you so much for all this wonderful information. And we just wish everybody well and hope that you all feel your best. So thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.